On behalf of my wife Miriam and my dear friend and partner in Birthright Israel, Michael Steinhardt, it is my pleasure to welcome you all tonight to this important discussion about genocide. The responsibility of the strong to protect the weak. We are likewise proud and honored to be sponsors of tonight's event, featuring the world's two most important names in genocide memory. First, our dear friend, Nobel Prize laureate Elie Wiesel, one of the greatest and arguably the greatest humanitarian of our time, and is the very face of world Holocaust consciousness. The second, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, the only man on earth who can claim to have stopped a genocide. I will now introduce the moderator of tonight's discussion, our dear friend and my and Mary's partner in so many global events to benefit the Jewish people, Rabbi Shmuly Botella. He's the founder and executive director of This World, the Jewish Values Network, who put this evening together and whose recent trip to Rwanda to organize tonight's event, Mary and I were honored and proud to sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to please welcome America's Rabbi Shmuly Botella.
The two most important representatives of the fight to stop genocide. First and foremost, my mentor, hero, teacher, and dear friend, a man who I affectionately call Rebbe Eliezer for the past 25 years, and that's how I will address him this evening in our discussion. The Prince of the Jewish people, the great light of our nation to the rest of the world's foremost Jewish personality, and on anyone's list accompanied by perhaps Nelson Mandela and the Dalai Lama, on anyone's list, Elie Wiesel would be on a list of the three most respected men alive. Ladies and gentlemen, the very conscience and representative of the martyred 6 million of the Holocaust, Nobel Peace Laureate Elie Wiesel. And then a man who, as you just heard, can claim to be the only person alive to have stopped the genocide. Mr. President, I so revere and honor those who are champions of their people. And when in 1994, between April and June, when you saw your people being slaughtered in the fastest genocide in the history of the world, with 330 being hacked to death per hour, in a low-tech genocide, it wasn't gas chambers, it wasn't machine guns, it was a low-tech genocide. When you saw the world turn its back on your people, you decided that they would have only one champion, and that would be you and your army who would put an end to the genocide. You did so, and as such, you became a hero to all of us who believe that combating genocide is our foremost obligation. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. This is a historic evening. It has long been my desire, as someone who believes that combating genocide is the foremost humanitarian obligation of our time. Whether you are religious or an atheist, and on this stage I debated Christopher Hitchens, at the time the world's most famous atheist, but the one thing that he and I agreed on is that ensuring that the words never again mean just that, never again. That no child will ever die because of race or creed. That no man or woman will ever die because of religion or race. That human life should be of infinite value, and that we are sick and tired of a world that turns a blind eye to the mass slaughter of innocents because of the color of their skin, or because of their religious identity, or because of their spiritual beliefs. That this must finally stop.
In the whole world, two brothers, Cain and Abel, and one became the assassin or the victim of the other. Why? Why does the Bible begin its career with this story? It was troubling me for many, many, many years. I studied every single source. And then I came to the conclusion, actually, well, first of all, as you know, I love questions more than answers, but this question has to be at least addressed. Is it that all of us must learn that whatever happens, happens to us as well? Which means Cain and Abel were brothers. Whose brother am I? But you say, Lo tamot al tam reyecha, one of the most beautiful sentences in the world, naturally, thou shalt not stand idly by. What are we doing as teachers, as writers, as humanists? Simply, we are not standing idly by. And the word idly is very powerful. Idly, don't stand idly by. Which means if you are there and something is happening, do something. Become a participant. Unfortunately, I belong to a generation that has seen the opposite.
One lesson we learned along the way was not to dwell so much on blaming others for what has happened or what has not happened, but to take responsibility for ourselves. Because indeed, understanding this world
In 2010, President Obama was putting a lot of pressure on Israel about settlements in Jerusalem. You took out full-page ads in the world's leading publications, and you said that Jerusalem appears 600 odd times in the Hebrew Bible. It doesn't appear in the Quran, and the president should understand our attachment to Jerusalem. And the president invited you to lunch. He's a dear friend of yours, President Obama. He has great respect for you, and I believe it's reciprocal. Will you, since the strong of an obligation to protect the weak, are you now going to speak out, let's say, about Iran and the president's overtures to Iran, that they have yet to call back their annihilatory, genocidal rhetoric against Israel? I know it was Ahmadinejad, and this is a new president, but he has yet to renounce it and say that's a bunch of claptrap, and he has yet to renounce the funding of Hamas and Hezbollah. And given that you're one of the most authoritative moral voices in the entire world, and those ads may have changed President Obama's posture towards Jerusalem. He invited you to lunch and then it changed. That's the authority you carry. Will you be saying something about Iran now that an Israeli prime minister is arriving tomorrow with the threat of genocide still against Israel from Iran, without that being removed? And again, now Prime Minister Netanyahu arrives, he's on the defensive yet again. The New York Times today, front page, is about how Netanyahu can be seen as a warmonger if he doesn't get with the new approach that people want peace and they want to see reconciliation. What is your attitude about the overture to Iran amidst this genocidal rhetoric toward Israel?
I'm against it, naturally. Of course. But look, I speak to people, I speak to leaders all over the world. And about Iran, I have done a lot. I cannot tell you what, because it's always personal, but I have done a lot. I believe Iran is a danger. Not only because Iran has, I don't even know why, become the enemy of Israel. I don't know why. Maybe they don't know why. They needed an enemy that shows Israel. But they are an enemy, no doubt. And I spoke to many leaders of the world over there. But you can imagine what I said.
So your solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people is important, given that you have a unique understanding of the kind of security concerns that Israel has. I mean, the kind of criticism that you're getting about Eastern Congo, and I still want to address that, has a lot to do with the fact that the FDLR, a terrorist group comprised of former genocidaires, are on your border, and you feel the need to fight them. There was a grenade thrown in a public space just before I arrived in Kigali that killed a few innocent civilians. And Israel also had a buffer zone in southern Lebanon until a few years ago because of terrorist organizations like Hezbollah that kill innocent Israelis. In light of that, since you're opening an embassy in Israel, and that was announced through your foreign minister at an event that we hosted, and I thank Louise also for her friendship to Israel, is there no possibility of the country of Rwanda having this unique understanding of Israel's security situation, and vice versa, and you were one of the only heads of state to really be invited, along with President Clinton, to President Perez's 90th birthday party. You sat right there next to President Perez, President Clinton, Barbra Streisand, famous Jewish singer. Is there no possibility that you might consider opening your embassy specifically in Jerusalem to show solidarity with the Jewish state, given how maligned it can be and given how you yourself understand? Given, Mr. President, that you yourself must be astonished at the kind of attacks lodged against you when the world was so silent while your people died and you rescued them.
I think there is no question about the similarities of histories of our two peoples, with a lot of things happening differently or at different times and different places, but the feel and the feelings we have for the situation, and I guess the other way around, is not again in question. And for us, we feel very strong about relating to the Jewish people and to Israel, and we want to achieve that, and we have already had it moving quite well in terms of relationship. We want to strengthen that.
But Israel's attitude is, criticize us all you want. Where were you when we were being gassed at a rate of 10,000 a day, 1.5 million children? We had no army. Now we have an army and condemn us, but we're not going to walk. We're not going to do this again. We're going to protect ourselves. Because so many of the Jews feel, Rabbi Eliezer, that the silence in the face of the Holocaust was motivated by anti-Semitism. The world doesn't like Jews. Anti-Semitism is the perennial poison of the nations of the world. They're always hating the Jews, the Crusades, auto-da-fés, pogroms, and eventually the Holocaust. But now we're hearing from President Kagame that his nation experienced the same thing, and they're not Jewish.
What does it mean that the Jewish people went through so much and nevertheless has not lost its commitment to honor? With all the problems that Jewish people have, especially in Israel after all, it's a political state as well. But nevertheless, they tried so hard for 2,000 years to change us. And we didn't change. And nothing will make us change. We are here to stay who we are.
So, are you concerned about the use of poison gas in Syria? Do you feel the obligation as a world leader to speak out and say something? Because what confuses me, and I'm not trying to even be objective here, because I don't feel when it comes to genocide one can be, or mass murder, one can be objective. We had this terrible shooting in Newtown, Connecticut in December, where 20 children, 6 teachers were murdered by Adam Lanza. He then shot himself. Had he said, okay, I surrender to the police and I'll give up my arsenal, he still would be punished. Even if you give up your chemical weapons, you still can't kill children. What is your opinion as someone who stopped the genocide as to what should happen in Syria?
See, these situations are very complex. Some things are not very clear or straightforward, as heard or seen on the surface of it. But one thing is very clear. Poison gas should not be used anywhere against anybody. I wish we didn't even have them in stock anywhere in this world. That's
I gotta clap for that.
We only hope that the impression made by the words of these two individuals will resonate with all of you, so you too can become ambassadors of Jewish values, and in particular, the need to stop genocide and preserve and protect human life. Leviticus continues this thought with the famous commandment, "You shall not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor," imploring us never to allow innocent bystanders and innocents in general to be slaughtered. I thank you all for attending, and I wish you every success